Hey there friends, it's Marie and I'm doing a short informational video series on the basics of card making. Today's video is about stamping. So I've already done a video on cutting your card bases. I'm going to go over some of the stamping basics today. Like I said, this is basic, just what you need to get started and nothing fancy or frilly. So here are a bunch of different stamp sets that I have. There are many different companies that create stamps. A lot of the companies have their own style. They have different stamp sets that they are known for. And I work with mostly clear stamps, but there are some of these red rubber cling stamps available as well. This one's from Unity. Unity has some really gorgeous designs and they have high quality rubber stamps. Now, you might need a stamp block or two when you are stamping, or you can have a stamp positioner tool, and I'll get to that as well. You also need an ink. I'm using scrapbook.com's hybrid ink today, and I'll talk a little bit about some different black inks at the end of this video, but for now I just want to kind of show some of the basics of stamping. So you can see that I have put my red rubber cling stamp onto a clear stamp block here, and I'm putting some ink on it. Now most of your cling stamps or your clear stamps, they just need something to stick to, like your block here, and then you can pick up the block and stamp it onto your paper. After you put your ink on, you just press it onto your cardstock. Make sure you press it down well and evenly, lift your block, and then you have that impression on your paper. Once that ink is dry, you can go ahead and color it, you can cut it out, you can do ink blending, anything you want with that image. There's a lot of different techniques with stamping. I'm just showing you the basics today. If you're making a card, you might want to add a sentiment, and there are tons of different sentiment stamp sets out there, lots of different companies like I mentioned. So I'll try to link some of those things down in the description. And also, if you're enjoying this video, if you like hearing the 101 basics of card making, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. I'll know you like it, and I'll continue to make some more of these basic videos. So I've gone ahead and I've put that sentiment on my stamp block and I've stamped it onto my design here, and you could just go ahead and send this as a card. You could go ahead and color it, send it. Basically you have a card. So you don't have to get too fancy, but if you don't like the stamp blocks, if they're a little bit too unpredictable for you, there are a few stamp platforms out there. Now I have Misti's and I have the Tim Holtz platforms, and I do use both of them. I reach for my Misti's more often for a few different reasons, and I'll talk about that. But I'm showing you some of the different sizes here. So Misti has about 3 sizes, and the stamp platform has this travel size, which I'm showing you here, and it has the larger size. So I'm just comparing these two smaller sizes of stamp platforms right now. And this is just more of to show you the differences between the two. They both work. I'm not going to say buy one or the other, but they both work. So I'm showing you here on the Tim Holtz platform, you can flip the door. It comes off and it has it labeled on each side as clear or rubber. So if you're using clear stamps, you want that clear side up so that you can mount your clear stamp and stamp. If you're using a rubber cling stamp, you're going to flip that door to where you can read rubber on the front and then go ahead and stamp. So I'm using a clear stamp right now. I'm going to go ahead and put my cardstock down. You have your magnets that you can hold your cardstock in place. Pick up that stamp with your door. It's going to stick to it. It's basically like a big stamp block on a hinge. Put your ink on and then press it down into your paper, and you're going to get a nice image, a nice impression. The one thing I really love about these stamp positioning tools is that you can stamp multiple times and you're going to get a clean, precise image every time you stamp. As long as your paper does not move, you can restamp your image if something didn't stamp correctly and get a really nice crisp black line. When I'm stamping, I love using these stamp positioning tools because I really do like a crisp black line when I'm stamping. I don't like it when I miss certain spots. So this really gives you a lot of leeway when you're stamping. You can get a really good impression. So you might have noticed I've flipped my door here so that I can accommodate the rubber cling stamp, put a little bit of ink on, and stamp it down. So the Tim Holtz and Tonic stamp platform you can use with rubber and cling stamps. It's got the magnets included. The platform that you put your paper on is magnetic. You can hold down your paper and stamp. Like I mentioned, it works really well. It's a great size. It can for if you're doing card making, the travel size accommodates most of your cards and your papers. Now I'm going to move over to the Misti. So I have this mini Misti, which is a great size for a card base, and I have the regular Misti, which I use for larger stamp sizes. I tend to grab my mini Misti a lot because it's small, it's compact, I don't have a lot of room in my craft room, and it just tucks away really nicely. You can also get one of those stamping mouse pads that I've pulled out there that I showed you. You can clean it, wipe it clean. You put it down when you're using your clear stamps because a little bit of foam will help you get a nicer impression when you're stamping. And you can also take it out when you're using rubber stamps. So you can use the Misti with clear and cling rubber stamps as well. So like I've done with the other platform, I've just picked up my stamp image. You can see the bottom of her feet did not stamp very well, but that's why we're using a stamp platform. I can go ahead and restamp that and get a perfect image. So I do use my platforms a lot, especially with sentiments, with these really detailed stamp images so that I can get a nice stamped image. So I've picked up my cardstock, I've taken out that Misti Mousepad, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp a sentiment with a rubber cling stamp as well. So you can use the Misti with clear and cling stamps, they work both fine. Going to position that, just pick it up with my door, put a little bit of ink on, and stamp it out. What I really love about Unity's red rubber stamps is you usually get a really great impression just stamping it one time. And even if you're using a stamp block, I usually get a really great impression. So the red rubber really does give you a great impression. The clear stamps are easier to store. They take up a little bit less room, but I like to use them with a stamp platform because sometimes they don't stamp perfectly the first time. Now I mentioned I'm going to talk a little bit about black inks. Now I use scrapbook.com's black hybrid ink. There's a lot of different brands out here. These 4 brands that I'm showing you are all permanent when you stamp them, and you can use them with both alcohol markers, watercolors, colored pencils, any kind of coloring medium when you want to color your stamps. So these 4 inks are usually the ones that I will grab when I'm stamping images. And there are other black inks out there. There are dye inks, there are hybrid inks, there are pigment inks. I tend to grab a hybrid ink when I'm stamping, and I know I want to color because all of them will be permanent when you want to color over them. My Versafine ink is a pigment ink, takes a little bit longer to dry, but it gives you a really nice black impression. So sometimes if I'm stamping a sentiment with a stamp block, I will take this, stamp it on, let it dry, and that will finish my card. So I hope this has given you a little bit of an idea of where to get started with stamping and inks. If you have any questions, post them down below. Otherwise, tap the bell, like, subscribe, do all the things. I'll catch you guys next time.